It's been a while, but I'm back reviewing episode 26, the Autobot Run of Season 2, Generation 1 of the Transformers. So let's get after it. This is Energon Entries. Welcome back to Energon Entries, everybody. As always, this is your host, Matt Freites. I hope that this finds you well, and I want to apologize. It's been a while. I think it's been almost 2 months since I've done an episode, and full disclosure, things have been tough for me here in the Freites household. I live in the United States, and obviously there's been a turnover in administration, and this is not to get political, but times have been interesting for me in what I do in my everyday life. And when it comes down to doing a podcast like this, I love doing it. You all should know that by now. But some things have to take a back seat when times are tough. And so I just did not really have the mental capacity to do this. I had watched some episodes, had some notes written out, but it was just tough. And so trying to balance everything that is going on, also trying to balance having other content that I do, it's just been a lot. So I appreciate you if you have stuck around. One thing that's crazy is I've noticed that new people have been flooding to this podcast even in this absence. And that's just absolutely bonkers to me. So thank you to everybody who has reviewed the show. Thank you to everybody who has tuned in and has joined new. And I'm just really excited to be back and giving you some new content. And with that, let's get to the episode recap. The episode begins with Spike and Chip imagining how thrilling it would be to see the Autobots participate in a car race. Meanwhile, in an Old West ghost town, the Constructicons complete the Transfixatron, a device that locks Transformers in their current mode. After testing it on Starscream, much to his embarrassment, Megatron readies the device for a plan to target the Autobots. Back at the racetrack, the Autobots agree to participate in a charity race, much to Huffer's disapproval. As they race, Skywarp uses the Transfixatron to trap the Autobots in vehicle mode without their knowledge. The Autobots' celebratory stunts are cut short when the Decepticons attack, rendering them defenseless as their transformation capabilities are disabled. Forced into vehicle mode, the Autobots are easily overpowered and herded away. Bumblebee manages to escape with Spike and Chip, returning to base to alert Ratchet and Wheeljack. At the ghost town, Megatron reveals a second device, a crushing machine designed to destroy the Autobots starting with Ironhide. Optimus Prime uses Roller to create a distraction, ramming the Crusher to free Ironhide and buying time for Hound to send a distress signal. Back at the base, Ratchet and Wheeljack finish creating a grenade-like device to counteract the Transfixatron. The Autobots and humans head to the ghost town to rescue their captured comrades, dodging Ravage and deploying the grenade just in time. The blast restores the Autobots' ability to transform, turning the tide of the battle. As the Constructicons form Devastator, Wheeljack and Cliffjumper cleverly use the Transfixatron against the Combiner, causing Devastator to separate. The Decepticons retreat and the Autobots destroy the Transfixatron, ensuring it can never be used again. The episode ends with the Autobots reflecting on the day's challenges and their victory, ready to face whatever the Decepticons scheme next. Okay, so I'm a little bit out of practice here, so you're going to have to bear with me as I try to sort of get back into form, but we always start with the non-robot thoughts. And Transfixatron, the name for this device, feels like a totally phoned-in name for a big bad device. And it's just something that it sounds like, yeah, let's go with that. Something, add a Tron to it, and that's all that we're going to do. But despite the bad name, the plan actually has many parts to cover all their bases. And I actually like how the Decepticons are like, okay, we normally fail at this one, so let's try and have our bases covered here. This is another OG Autobots episode. We've been over so many times. I'm watching them out of order, whatever. That is what it is. In Season 2, though, I have noticed that the Decepticons' plans are very specific. Like this one is keep the Autobots in car mode. And the Autobots always just so happen to play right into it. Now, obviously, that's what makes the show work, and so I'm getting a little nitpicky here. But it is funny how it's like, we're going to do X, Y, and Z. Or actually, not even so. We're going to go into the minutia of what makes X, X, and the Autobots are going to play right into it and do exactly that. I think it's funny, and that's what kind of adds a little bit of charm to the show. When we talk about the humans, we have Chip Chase. I love Chip Chase. He's somebody who has always added value, in my opinion, and I just love that. Chip Chase and Spike getting spied on while watching a car race, and honestly is no fault of their own. Now, The Autobots and the humans involved with the Autobots always seem to be caught doing stupid things. And in this case, they were just out having fun, and they said something like, oh, wouldn't it be great if the Autobots actually were part of this race? That's pretty harmless. They're not doing anything wrong there. It's just the Decepticons can't help themselves. I do kind of wish that Chip Chase was more of a regular than Spike. And again, Spike has his purpose, but Chip Chase is always awesome. He always helps out. He rarely does anything dumb. And I think Spike has turned into this character that we automatically assume is going to do something stupid. And I think that has become more annoying as I've watched more of the show. Whereas Chip Chase, maybe it's because he's been on Limitedly, but Chip Chase is a lot better in terms of actual character interaction and actual helping the Autobots. Except, of course, during one of the scenes, this battle scene, he just sort of takes his wheelchair and rolls down this massive hill. And that seems really, really dangerous. It's brave, of course, but it really doesn't fit with Chip Chase's character because he doesn't generally do stupid things, but in this case he did. So Chip Chase, everybody has their moments. I just would rather see more of Chip than more of Spike. Let's move on to the Autobots here. So the Autobots deciding to help the humans is always going to be noble to me. That's kind of what separates them from the Decepticons. But however, it is smart this time that they left a couple of people behind at the base. Now, when they did that, I'm thinking that's not foreshadowing whatsoever. Of course it was, but that's something that I think is very smart. Also, whenever they do this, whenever they leave behind people at the base, now maybe again this is military strategy, but they always leave behind the least warrior type Autobots. But they have the smart Autobots left behind, and those people can always come up with a plan. Maybe we can leave a combination. Do we need both Ratchet and Wheeljack in the same layer? I don't think so. I think you could have one or the other, and the other one could go out to battle. It would be nice to have a little bit more of a heavy presence whenever you need to go back and rescue your friends, which, by the way, they do every single episode. During the race scene, Jazz plays music, and again, it's a new song from him. So it is nice to know that Jazz can play a lot more music because, hey, he's a music man, he should play something a little bit different. It is funny, though, how all the Autobots are the same speed when within the midst of the Autobots, there are actual race cars in the ranks. And it's funny how you see like a Jeep and a van going the same speed as like a Ferrari or a Lamborghini Countach. That wouldn't actually happen in real life, but it's the 80s, folks. So let's maybe I'm being a little bit too nitpicky. Hound, though, once again proves his worth. I've said this a million times, and I think it's going to be true throughout. Hound is the most useful Autobot there is. Fight me if you want, but that seems to be the case every time he comes in, much like Chip Chase. He's doing something great, and here he uses a hologram to show where the Autobots are located. Folks, I keep telling you how great he is, and this is a perfect example of that. On the other side of that, Brawn continues to give off seriously toxic vibes, and he's doing it to Huffer this time. This isn't the first time. Now again, just because they're good guys doesn't necessarily mean that they always have to be good. Good people have bad days. I have them all the time. Brawn, though, seems to have more of them than everybody else, and sometimes it seems very toxic to his own people, and that seems to be a problem for me if you're talking about camaraderie within the ranks. And of course, there's the Decepticons, and the Decepticons are using an abandoned Old West ghost town, complete with twangy music, and this is new for them. Normally, they build some gigantic layer, some gigantic machine, quote-unquote, in the middle of nowhere, and usually nobody knows about it. At least here, they are going to a real place that actually is abandoned in a ghost town. Kind of neat. The Constructicons calling Megatron Master Megatron, that seemed new to me. Didn't seem like something they had done before. I think I might have said this before, but man, the Constructicons get a ton of joy out of turning into Devastator. It almost is something like a rallying cry. They get giddy, almost. Didn't realize Decepticons could get giddy, but here we are. The Autobots did have a lot of trouble with him in this episode. In other episodes, even ones we've reviewed recently, they've defeated him super easy. So there's a little bit of a disconnect in how great Devastator actually is. Is he all-powerful, or is he kind of clumsy? Every so often, we seem to get the answer of, hey, he's having a good day today. Most of the time, he gets defeated really easily, but here he did not. Megatron being so surprised that they defeated Devastator, though, is funny, because the Autobots have done this every single time. Again, maybe there is something that happens in between these episodes, but as far as what I've seen on the TV, they have a 100% success rate, so Megatron being surprised, maybe go back to the drawing board. I mentioned earlier that Hound is the most useful Autobot. Laserbeak, again, is the most useful Decepticon. He once again succeeds in his mission of espionage. He is all reliable. You ask Laserbeak to go spy, he's going to go spy, and he's going to get the information that you want. That's the kind of robot that you want to have around. Now, when it comes to the Transfixatron in this plan, Megatron used a pun, and he called it the Guinea Pigatron. To me, that's beneath him. Megatron is a leader of a certain stature. He should not be using puns. But he's doing it to make fun of Starscream, so okay, fine, but honestly, Megatron needs to be a little bit better. Now, Starscream complaining about a weapon that he hasn't seen used yet, if that isn't pure Starscream, I don't know what is. Starscream is the guy in the room that thinks he knows everything, and especially more than everybody else. So him complaining and then having the gun used on him, so great. But of course, when it comes to Megatron, when it comes to this plan, Megatron always retreats in the end. It's always going to happen, much like Devastator getting defeated. Megatron, though, he retreats more and more easily as the show goes on. I have to ask one question, though, is where the hell did Skywarp keep the Transfixatron when he was in jet mode? Because if you remember, he came to the race, used the Transfixatron. Where did he keep this thing? It's the size of him, for God's sakes. How does he keep that in transformation mode? This is something that always happens, the scale of things. Where do they keep these things? How are they able to get in certain spaces when they're transformed or even in robot mode? It is what it is. I wouldn't chalk it up to an animation error, but it is something to keep in mind. However, as it relates to animation errors, in the scene where they tested the Transfixatron on Starscream, Shockwave was there standing next to Megatron. Shockwave is the steward of Cybertron, and in this episode, he was seen not once, but twice. He never actually talks or fights, and we only ever see him on Cybertron, but in this episode, he was standing right next to Megatron in the episode, and that's a little bit weird to me. When flying after messing with the Autobots, Megatron is seen with lots of red on his body. I think for the most part, he's gray and black in the way that he has been portrayed, but there is a little bit of red in him. It just seemed that there was a lot more in that scene. Might have just been something I caught and was a little bit sensitive to, but you never know. And last but not least, when the leftover Autobots show up to the ghost town, Ironhide is seen transforming into robot mode with them. We know that he can't. Also, Starscream is heard with Skywarp's voice at one point during the final battle. That's something that happens pretty frequently. It is what it is, but those are the animation quirks or the voice quirks for this episode. Overall, how did I feel about this episode? Standard issue Transformers episode. Nothing more, nothing less, really. The plan was meh. Again, a little bit specific, and again, they succeed in certain ways in getting this plan off the ground. They fail in the end. The Decepticons always do. The Autobots never seem to be able to figure things out. It is what it is. Overall, though, a good episode. So there you have it. My return and my recap of episode 26. If you want to follow me, Instagram at EnergonEntriesPod is the handle to do so. Feel free to message me if you'd like. I love to hear from people. I love that people have still been coming to this show. It blows my mind, but I definitely appreciate all of you. For those of you who have not subscribed, rate, review to the podcast, it means a lot. I love seeing reviews. I love knowing that this show makes people happy because it's something I do for fun, but I don't just do it for myself. I do it for all of you, so I really appreciate you. Next episode, we will talk about episode 27, The Golden Lagoon. Hopefully, it won't be 6 weeks in between episodes. I'm going to try to do this every week, if not every 2 weeks. I promise you that I will be back a lot more frequently. I hope this finds everybody well, fam. Hope this finds everybody safe, and I'll talk to you next time. This is Energon Entries. The opinions and viewpoints expressed on Energon Entries are those of Matt Freites and his guests and not necessarily those of the Matty Ice Media Network. Energon Entries is exclusively owned by Matt Freites and is brought to you by the Matty Ice Media Network.